Hello and welcome to Poetry Pea. It's summertime here, which means life has taken on a slightly different rhythm. There are friends and family coming to enjoy this beautiful corner of the world, and when I get the chance, I'm going to be heading off to do a little exploring myself. So for a few weeks, I thought I'd revisit some of the highlights from the Poetry Pea archives and share them with you once again. This episode comes from our wonderful reading series, where you and I have had the privilege of welcoming some truly exceptional poets to read from their collections and talk about their work. We're beginning with Lorraine Padden, reading from her beautiful collection Upwelling. Lorraine's poems are thoughtful, finely observed, and quietly moving. And it's a real pleasure to bring this reading back for those of you who may have missed it the first time round. And perhaps even for those of you who remember it well. So, settle yourself somewhere comfortable, perhaps with a cup of coffee, or out in the garden if the weather is kind, and enjoy this classic Poetry Pea reading from Lorraine Padden, whose book, Upwelling, is available on Amazon. You know where the link will be. Ciao. So Lorraine Padden is joining me today to read from her book Upwelling, her debut book of haiku, senryū, tanka and haibun. Lorraine, welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, Patricia, thank you. It is such an honor and pleasure to be with you.
Lovely to have you. And you know, I don't think you need much further introduction because I think our viewers and listeners will know your work because you're a regular here on the podcast. But of course, they may not have read your book, a book which might possibly have taken on a little extra, more poignant meaning for you, Lorraine. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the lovely cover for your book and what it now means to you.
Yes, thank you, Patricia. I will. Yes, my dear sister was an artist. She passed away quite suddenly in December of last year, and I had chosen a woodblock print of hers to put on the cover of my book, and it was a real honor to do that and celebrate her aesthetic gifts in that way. So yes, it's a little more poignant, but it was just a real pleasure to feature her on the book as well as my own work.
That's wonderful. It's so lovely to have that link, isn't it? And Lorraine, I am honestly so sorry for your loss.
Thank
really.
you so much. Thank you.
So I think, you know, what we'll do, we'll dedicate this one to Penelope, shall we?
Thank you. That would be perfect.
Good. And before we start, we should let people know where they can get hold of this book.
Oh, thank you so much. LorrainePadden.com. Simple website, LorrainePadden.com. It should come right up there. And we're in our second printing. Red Moon Press did the first printing. And so now we've switched over to print on demand through Amazon.
Wonderful. And don't worry, if you haven't caught that, the details will be in the show notes. Lorraine, there's a lovely blurb on the back of the book, which I think captures the essence of your work. The blurb is by Kristen Lindquist, author of It Always Comes Back. She says of Upwelling that it showcases Lorraine Padden's satirical wit in the service of her deep sensitivity to contemporary social issues. And she also points out that although many of your pieces are on the surface witty, they often land a punch which, to quote Kristen again, give voice to the failings of humanity while not letting herself or the reader off the hook. And with that in mind, I think we should really hear from you, and our listeners and viewers can make up their own mind. So don't forget, when you've heard this, email Lorraine or myself and let us know what you think, because feedback's always important. Lorraine, over to you. Please read to us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for quoting Kristen. Black-eyed Susan, the garden she left behind. Black-eyed Susan, the garden she left behind.
I read this one before I truly had a handle on your voice, and it could go either way, just a straight nostalgic wistful piece, or literally a hard-hitting piece. Which way did you want us to read it?
Many of these poems I kind of consider both and. They might have a hard edge to them or allude to suffering, to abuse, to trauma. In this case, Black-Eyed Susan it's obviously the name of a wonderful type of daisy, but it also could be a woman's first name, and she could be escaping a traumatic, abusive situation. And she loses something by leaving, by saving herself. So in this one in particular, yes, it could be very tragic, but it's about abuse and escape, trauma and survival. So some of the work in this collection really is darker, doesn't really have any type of an optimistic read, perhaps, that a reader might have. But there are a few, though, that I think really try to straddle that line. I mean, there's something wonderful about a woman saving herself from a horrible situation. And I think that can emerge from a reading from this poem, as well as the reality that perhaps she's been physically wounded by that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, when I first read it, and even reading it as the hard-hitting one, I find hope in it, actually.
Yeah,
I do find hope in it. Some of these pieces, as we go along, some of them are quite dark, but Kristen's right, there's humor too. So shall we hear some more forceful poems, perhaps?
Sure. This next one is a monostick, or a one-line haiku. Back to school special on flak jackets and masks. Back to school special on flak jackets and masks. This next one is a traditional three-line. Exposed bedrock. The all-white jury acquits. Exposed bedrock. The all-white jury acquits.
Do you find it cathartic to write about these social issues, these societal issues?
I do. This collection arose out of many months of my own visceral, personal reaction to what was happening in the world around me. Mm-hmm. And the response arose through these poems. And ultimately, it would be wonderful if a reader or writer takes these poems, takes the ideas or the images, the realities embedded, our common humanity that's embedded in these poems, and let it inspire their own work, whether that comes out as haiku or visual art or prose or anything else, movement, visual art. I really don't have any control over these works except perhaps my own intention, but I love all work that really continues to blossom and inspire other readers and writers and artists.
Let me share a quote with you from Christine Todd Whitman. Now, she is a politician and I'm not an American, so I don't really know what side of the political argument she comes down on. So for me, that's irrelevant. But what she said, or apparently said, was that anyone who thinks that they're too small to make a difference has never tried to fall asleep with a mosquito in the room. I thought that was very appropriate to this work. I mean, you've talked about you hoping that other artists and creatives would pick this up and find some inspiration for their work. And if they do, and hopefully they will, then that spreads the message a little bit further. It's like a rolling stone, isn't it? It gathers momentum. It could make such a difference if people really take on board some of the things you're saying.
Yes, I agree. And I also think that in the world of haiku, I mean, there are other sort of, truth-telling, socially engaged poems out there. There are other haiku poets that are working in this medium, but I also feel that perhaps there is also a shift toward incorporating, bearing witness to things that are happening around us that are bleak and dark, and letting that inform our work as haiku poets. And it's part of our common humanity. I mean, even if I'm sitting on my couch here in California watching what's happening in the war in Ukraine, that is deeply impactful to me. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. Witnessing what's happening in society around me and how it affects me actually also very directly is something that I think needs to show up in our work. At least that's what arose in me as I was exploring different images and different themes in my own work. This really rose to the surface of something that I didn't want to turn away from.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can all go out into our backyards and be beautifully moved. Really, there's a transcendence about the moments that we discover in the natural world, perhaps in our backyards or in parks where we live or wherever we are, the view from our window. But I live 15 minutes from an incredible humanitarian crisis happening at the border, at the US border with Mexico. 15 minutes from my front door.
Mm.
So I choose not to look away from that and only dwell in what might be beautiful and transcendent in my backyard. In a way, that is my backyard as well. And I think it deserves to find a way into our expressive work.
Actually, you've hit on a topic that really interests me at the moment. I'm very interested in the role that we haiku poets play in recording history, a little moment in history.
Oh, yes.
And I think the next one that I'm going to ask you to read, well, we'll talk about it afterwards. Perhaps if you could read it, and we'll come back to what I want to say.
RBG, the outspoken pattern of a lace collar. RBG, the outspoken pattern of a lace collar.
Now, I'm a European, so I somehow think I don't get the full impact of this. Lorraine, tell me the story, because this is an historical moment or an historical piece.
Yes, I agree. It is about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the second woman to be appointed to the US Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. She died in 2020, and she was this incredible, iconic force for good, in my opinion, force for good, force for liberal democratic values on the highest court in this country. She lobbied very successfully for equal pay for women, and she fought also very successfully against gender discrimination in her career, both before the Supreme Court and while a Chief Justice or Justice of the Supreme Court. So I really loved to juxtapose her initials, who she was, and RBG, that's how she's referred to so often, with a lace collar, because a lace collar denotes, at least to me, this sort of a demure, old-fashioned, beautiful, quiet, home-crafted piece. Mm-hmm. And yet she was so representative of giving women an equal say, equal pay, an equal seat at the table in society. Mm-hmm. So I really loved to honor her in that regard. So yeah, exactly. She represented many historical, very important moments, and I was very happy to try to capture them, or one of them at least, in a haiku.
I probably don't know her full history, but I know enough of it to know that she's a bit of a goddess as far as women are concerned.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, we are going to do a little bit more of history, but before we go there, should we have a little bit of what at least I think is wistful and witty, Lorraine?
Sure. These next two, both are 3 lines each. Out of body experience, the long drive out of Texas. Out of body experience, the long drive out of Texas. Flattened boxes, the night squeezed out in the alley. Flattened boxes, the night squeezed out in the alley.
Let's go back to the first one, the out-of-body experience. What I love about this one, again, I'm not American, so I could be completely wrong, but Texas is a whacking great big state, bigger than many countries in Europe, bigger than the one I live in, anyway, certainly. And so, and particularly when you read this one, out-of-body experience, the long drive out of Texas. It is wistful, but it's very playful as well. What were you thinking when you wrote it?
I wanted to put something together that had many layers of meaning. Mm-hmm. So yes, on one hand, Texas is an enormous state, and it is literally a long drive to get from point A to point B or to exit the state. And an out-of-body experience is just sort of surreal in some ways. But I also, what informed me as one layer of meaning in this poem as well is the threat. At that time I wrote this poem, there was a threat to Roe versus Wade, so women's legal access to abortion, and Texas was one of the first states to enact local legislation, and it was sort of a precursor event to what would eventually happen on a national level. So literally out-of-body experience could also refer to having an abortion. So there is that layer perhaps, or that image of someone in that situation having that long drive to access reproductive health care out of that particular state.
I think probably someone closer to home, closer to your home, would get the layers very easily.
Yeah, that's what I love about haiku, is that so many readers can bring so many different interpretations to a poem. Maybe what the author intended, might not. And it's again, it's that kind of both and. There is no right or wrong way to read any poem, at least according to this writer and reader. And I'm just amazed and always just fascinated at what people bring to the work, or what they bring depending on the context that they're living, their community, their personal experience, obviously is going to shape how we receive all of this work.
Flattened boxes, the night squeezed out in the alley. And I think I've already said to you that I hope this one was nominated for a Touchstone, because on one level, I love the switch in perspective, the just disjunctiveness. It's hard to say that, disjunctiveness of it. I wish this was mine. I just love it. But again, I think it works on so many levels. Do you want to take us through where you were coming from on this?
Yeah, I had an image of a person having to sleep in an alley, and the literal truth is that people flatten boxes and they rest on them overnight, and then a little wordplay with squeezed out, the air leaving the box as you flatten it. I do like to use a little wordplay here and there, hopefully not too heavy-handedly, but that was an element of it as well. And then just the idea that a person sleeping in the alley, they're squeezing out their existence one night, one meal at a time. And that's a horrible suffering. But this took it into slightly different territory, not quite as bleak, perhaps, at least on the first read. But obviously there's a humanitarian crisis afoot here as well, that's manifesting by this night having to be squeezed out anywhere, not in a bed at home, but in some alley. So
yeah, I mean, I think this is possibly one of the examples of what Kristen was talking about when she said that you're giving voice to the failings of humanity, not letting you or me, the reader, off the hook. But you're really not doing it, as you said, in a heavy-handed way. You're not really getting in our face and telling us, this is wrong, this is terrible. You're giving us an opportunity to think about it, come to our own conclusions.
And frankly, if I took that opinion, it would be very inauthentic, because as much as I am active in my own community on homelessness issues, and I lobby where I can and do what I can as one individual to do something helpful in this situation, I still will walk by an alley where people are living. I bear witness to it at the same time that I try to help. So in some way, it didn't really feel right for me to take this. Yes, this is wrong. It's horrible. But I am also somewhat complicit in this, because I'm a member of this culture. I can do what I can, but the problem still exists. So simply, I guess, passing judgment on it or calling attention to it, that is one strategy. And I do have some work that really does that. But I also, as I write more of this work, try to cultivate a sensitivity to my own complicity, my own involvement in being part of the problem, quite frankly, that is not in my backyard, but is 15 minutes from my front door. And it's overwhelming as well for all of us. And maybe writing some haiku about it is a way to surface some of that anxiety, some of those emotions that are swirled around in how society is suffering around us, and how we contribute, how we help, how we bear witness to it, how we look away. If anything, this collection probably is designed, or hopefully designed, to help people just not look away.
When I read Flattened Boxes, The Night Squeezed Out in the Alley, it left me sort of breathless, very anxious. And I can't quite put my finger on it. I think it's the second line that does it. The night squeezed out. I think that's what makes me anxious. So I think it's a very, very, very effective. Did it come to you just like that, or did you have to work on it?
I've written a few poems around that theme, and I just wasn't, they didn't quite resonate well, or they were, too wordy, or just wasn't quite succinct. The images weren't clear enough, or perhaps concrete enough. So I had been working a while on that theme, and this one just sort of emerged, I think, once I landed on boxes, because I was dumpster for a while, and dumpster appears in other work in this sort of along these lines. And I read other poems that really treat it very, very well, very successfully. So I was just looking for other concrete images. And once I think boxes emerged, then I thought, okay, then the squeezed out, deflating the box to then make it a bed of sorts became the final direction for it.
We're going to go on. We're still going to stick with some hard themes, but we're moving further away from your own environment and into history again. Not that the others aren't, but just into history that possibly I have more connection with than the history going on your side of the Atlantic, Lorraine. People will understand when they hear them.
Chimneys, long shadows over Dachau. Chimneys, long shadows over Dachau. Air raid shelter, the quieter callings of stray cats and doves. Air raid shelter, the quieter callings of stray cats and doves.
Now, to me, we're in Europe, European wars. Is that the case with the second one? We're over in possibly the Ukraine?
Yes, that's where we are. That arose after a news report where there was the air raid siren in the background. And then that it just sort of flowed from there to juxtapose the cats, the doves, the life that continues and is perhaps soothing in the context, or when juxtaposed with that warning to take shelter because of imminent danger.
Yeah, they work really, really well together. And then I was intrigued by the first one, and I wondered, why were you thinking of Dachau? Where does that come from?
I was there in the mid-90s as a tourist. And my father served in World War II, not in the European arena, but in the South Pacific. So I have written a few brief pieces about him, about his memories he shared with me. But this one arose from my own experience. And it doesn't literally refer to the height of the chimneys, the architecture itself, but it's just the idea that there is this obvious long shadow of history, sorrow, suffering, and incredible human tragedy that is Dachau, that Dachau represents. And of course, the chimneys, obviously, the symbol, the literal symbol of where people were exterminated and bodies were burned. So there's that concrete reference as well. And the farther we get from the Second World War and from these atrocities, the to me, the risk of forgetting them increases. And the generation who served their countries at that time are mostly gone. And we have rich oral histories and scholarship and film and video and all of these things. But I think felt compelled to write about it because there still is this pull toward amnesia around this, and even forces on every side of our media saturated world that are denying that these atrocities ever happened, this being one of them. So I felt it important to speak about it directly.
I don't know if you traveled further around Germany, how much travel you did, but did you feel that there is a collective guilt?
That particular trip, no. I was a student of art history at the time, and so we went largely to major museums. And this was a side trip that I did with a couple of my friends and classmates. But what I'm involved with since then is Zen Peacemakers International, which I do mention in my book as an organization that also inspired me to put this collection together, because Zen Peacemakers International goes to Auschwitz every year and does a bearing witness retreat where people from all over the world gather in Auschwitz for facilitated conversations about exactly what you're referring to, about collective guilt, about responsibility, about how there really, after a certain point, there is no difference at all between perpetrator, survivor, bystander. We are all there as one human race, one human community that has suffered greatly because of that particular place, those events, that particular conflict. So yes, guilt, shame, terror, all of these things come up and are held in sort of a series of sacred conversations, if you will, where people feel free to express everything that comes up around being in that place at that time, with those memories, with that war, with their ancestral connection to it, with their family connection to it. Not so much personal experience, but certainly the reverberation of that experience down generations.
You're right. We need to remember. And I look at what's going on in the Ukraine, and I wonder, did we learn much? You know, are we too far away from the last horrendous war in Europe anyway, that we've forgotten?
We are a very violent, litigious species on the planet, apparently. And,
looks like it, yeah.
Yes, we go through these cycles of well-being and violence. It's really quite interesting to look at the span of history. So, you know, as much as I think we're fated to continue to endure these cycles as long as they last, as long as the planet will sustain them, or we on the planet will sustain them. I'm convinced the planet will sustain itself well beyond us. Thank you very much. Just leave it alone. You know, there are these tragedies, these conflicts create, I think, always tremendous opportunity for people to be wonderfully compassionately engaged with each other in various ways. And that is, I think, the silver lining, the saving grace, or whatever else you want to call it, about these conflicts, is because it really does invite us to be our best selves and to come up with ways to invent out of whole cloth ways to save each other. And I think that's a real blessing. And in the arc of my own work, in perhaps reflecting on the darkness of so many of these situations, either, you know, personal abuse, societal discrimination, gross societal injustice, the sort of both and of that tendency is to look at, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is to look at surviving an abusive relationship and moving on and healing, and trying to lean into the good, the positive, the healing that can come out of all of these situations, and a lot of the situations that I'm writing about.
So Lorraine, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here at Peat Towers today. I hope it's given our lovely listeners and viewers a lot of pleasure too. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now, but I know you've got one more powerful piece to read to us. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you, Patricia. It's just been an honor and a real pleasure to talk about this work with you. Thank you so much for having me.
So here we have Lorraine reading her haibun, Throttle, from her book, Upwelling. Details in the show notes.
Throttle. The Bronco's on and off the brakes, so I ease up to leave more room between us. Some swerving each time the driver reaches over to tend to what I imagine must be an excited puppy in the passenger seat. Playdate. He pulls over to the curb so everyone behind him can make their way around. The sound of marbles. Those curious dog ears suddenly become the tousled hair of a young boy cowering as Bronco lifts himself out of his seat and leans over with both hands, hitting the floor.